Okay, so it's 3 p.m. Allow me to welcome everybody to the EVN Users Meeting. I will start talking a little introduction a bit slowly so that some people can still join before the first presentation. So I'm Paco Colomer, Director of Jive, and to chair the session, I will be together with our colleague Noemi Pinilla from Arecibo Observatory. Hello, Noemi. And we will try to make this useful and attractive and also very interactive as much as possible. The users meeting is the best, or one of the best opportunities that we have to talk together, the EVN operations people, the EVN officers, but also the users, right? So I think in that sense, it's extremely interesting that we can have this meeting today, and thanks again and again to the organizers of all of this rather unusual, I hope in the future we will not do this many often, meeting in remote. I think the opportunity still is very well taken. The suggestion for these next 2 hours is that please keep your microphone muted unless you are actually asking a question. Also, keep your videos off during the presentations. That could help somebody when there is a little bandwidth available. And also use for your questions any of the several ways. Raise your hand, write in the chat, also write on Discord, and that will allow Noemi and me to be introducing your questions to the different speakers. Special thanks to the participants that are very east from Europe, from East Asia and Australia, that are still joining together joining us today. And with no more delay, I'd like to introduce the first speaker. We'll have 2 parts in the users meeting. The one is more informative, let's say, about the different aspects of EVN, and the second part, which is more the user's experience. And we will have a small break in the middle. So our first speaker is going to be Zsolt Paragi, and he's going to tell us in 10 minutes about VLBI 2020, a scientific roadmap for the next decade. Zsolt?
Yes, thank you, Paco. So hopefully you see my screen now. A lot of you already know about this, probably, hopefully. And a lot of you took part of creating this document, which is about how VLBI and the EVN in particular should look like in the next 10 years. What is it what we want to achieve? What is the science we want to do the next 10 years? And what is it we need? What kind of infrastructure we need for that so we can do that science? This is the document. This was produced as part of the Jumping Jive project, an EC supported project coordinated by Jive. This is one of the work package deliverables, and we have done it. We printed the book. All those who contributed received it already. We have a few copies still in Jive if you are interested, but it is of course available online on Archive. You can find it easily. So this describes in several chapters the science we want to do with the EVN, but also based on the recommendations from the various chapters, a technological roadmap was derived from this work. And I would like to emphasize that a number of people contributed to this document. So the main coordinators were Tiziana Venturi, Michael Lindqvist, and myself. And you see, we divided the work for various chapters. And these chapters had coordinators, and these coordinators started to involve more and more people. And then, of course, when we realized that this is not exactly the chapter structure we needed, then we reorganized everything. We merged the chapters, we split things. At the end, this is the final structure we have. We cover all the breadths of EVN science, from galaxies to stars, continuum, spectral line, transients, everything. And this is just a list of contributors. So you can see this was really an effort from the broad community. Now, what is the motivation for this kind of document? As you can see, the EVN has developed in the past 40 years. We collected the most successful highest cited EVN papers, the 100 most cited papers, and then we looked at the cumulative citation statistics year by year. And what you can see here is that by 2000s, there was a plateau. So the citation numbers increased. The science we produced was more and more interesting. And then this was at the time, this increased because we increased the bandwidths of the EVN to 512 megabit per second and then 1 gigabit per second. And then we started using the EVN archive. We had the pipeline data products. And then after that, after 2008 was another sharp increase in the citations. Then we had the VLBI sessions. We started around 2006. And then a few years later, we started using the software correlator, which was very flexible to all kinds of interesting science projects. More flexibility to pulsar, short transients, for masers, wide fields, multiple phase centers. And this way, the science EVN produced was more interesting also for in a broader context. And then especially when the short transient business started and also multi-messenger astronomy, then jointly with all these other instruments, we started producing some really hot science. Also in the past 40 years, the science topics changed a little bit. If you look at the first 20 years of the EVN from 1980 to 99, then the two major topics were AGN and galaxies. And all the smaller fraction was for transients, cosmology, and stellar science, galactic stellar science. In the past 20 years, this was more, at the time, was more equally divided between AGN, galactic science, and transient. So this is much more healthy science distribution, I believe. But there is still this challenge landscape, and then being able to produce interesting science when these all other new instruments coming online, like the SK, we have the EHT, and all these multi-messenger instruments as well. Now, we formulated 8 science goals, questions from the input that we received. And these are: what is the nature of dark matter and dark energy? When and how did the first black holes form? How do relativistic jets form, and what is their impact on the host galaxy? What is the physics of explosions following gravitational wave events? The first 4. And then what are the elusive fast radio bursts? Are we alone? How was the Milky Way born? How do stars form? How do they impact the environment at their death? So these are the questions that, well, of course, these are interesting questions for other instruments as well, but these are the questions VLBI arrays in particular can provide unique insights. Now, the document is about all this science, but how will we achieve that? What is it that we need? Of course, it has been in discussion for a long time now. We would like to develop broadband EVN antenna receiver systems that would be on the short term compatible with the SCA1 mid, but on the long term we could still broaden it and go further.
2 minutes long.
Yes. We would like to increase the recording rate to at least 32 gigabit per second. We need more telescopes operating at high frequencies above 22 gigahertz. And we would like to expand our network, of course, and to add new telescopes for more baseline and sensitivity and more sensitivity in general, UV coverage, and in particular, antennas in the African continent came up in a number of chapters. So this is regarding the telescopes, and somehow the next page is not coming. It's here. But also we need a new EVN correlator platform that is able to handle more than 30 telescopes, some of which may have multiple beams, and it's flexible for wide fields of view, short transients, and high spectral resolution modes. We also would like to develop a large field of view EVN archive that is fair in a way that you can use it for your science in an easy way, and the instrument we are using is very well understood. All those data that are in this archive. So this was my presentation. This is our goal, and together with you, all of you who are very much interested in the EVN, we can make this happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zsolt. I think it's a very nice presentation because there is a very nice document that is this EVN Vision 2030, also followed by a technology roadmap. So I don't know if there are any questions or comments from the audience. Of course, one would be, if your science is not reflected in this document, please shout out and use what we now have in the EVN web, which is an EVN mailbox, ideas, that you can send your ideas to whatever could be missing in this scientific vision. I don't see any question. Is there any funding plan to match the technology roadmap, from John McKean?
Can I ask a question?
Okay, so
from John, and
okay.
Now and you follow, Denise.
Okay, so I don't know about particular funding right now, but this is for discussion, of course, at the JIVE Council and the EVN board.
Yes, as you possibly know, there is a shared responsibility in funding of the technology needed from both the telescopes part and the correlator part, and this is something that needs to be addressed. Denise?
Yeah, I remember in the last EVN Symposium, there was talk of a new set of receivers. I think they were called BRAND, very
Yes.
wideband receivers. Is that included in part of the plan to get the 32 gigabits per second?
So the receiver is just a receiver, and it's how you record it. Yeah.
Well, my question is, do you have plans to have these lovely, very wide bandwidth receivers that could be used for doing things like awesome spectral and rotation measure mapping?
I would love to have them, definitely. So the prototype is being worked on. That's my understanding.
Yes, the brand receiver was indeed a prototype done in the context of RadioNet, and it is included potentially as a receiver for broadband in the technology roadmap. We also realize that it may not be easy to implement in the whole of the EVN, so there are also other alternatives, maybe of smaller bandwidths included in a shorter term. But the brand is, of course, not at all forgotten. Any other question or comment to Zsolt?
Yes, a very short one connected to that. How about improving the frequency agility, which is somehow related to that?
Yeah, so we talked a lot about the frequency agility, and we thought that at the lower frequencies, just having the much wider bands would partially solve that issue. And at higher frequencies, there was talk about these KVN type receivers that could have multiple frequency bands at the same time.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. We will have a few more minutes later in the session for other questions, but now I suggest we go on. Thank you, Zsolt. And we invite Kazi Rygl to talk about how to propose for EVN observations. Kazi?
Yes, hello. welcome everybody. Also welcome on behalf of the EVN Program Committee to the users meeting. So I will be talking about the opportunities for applying for observing time with the EVN. So the EVN has 3 deadlines per year at 1600 hours UTC on February 1st, June 1st, and October 1st. This call for proposals is announced by email about 30 days before the deadline and is to be found also on the website. So here you can propose for what we call regular proposals. So these are proposals going for disk recording time, for VLBI observations, for trigger proposals, large proposals, and proposals that wish to include additional EVN or non-EVN antennas, so also including globals, and including also correlator-only proposals. In addition to these 3 deadlines a year, you can submit at any time during the year a target of opportunity proposal and a short observation request. The latter, the short observation request, is a preparatory proposal, so it's not intended for science per se. It's meant for calibration, calibrator searches, or testing your observing setup. The information of all the types of proposals is available online. If you cannot find it, I urge you to contact user support at jive.eu, and they are very happy to help you with providing the information. Now, at the heart of any proposal is the scientific and technical justification. Regarding the scientific justification, I would like to stress that your proposal is going to be read by a radio astronomer who may not be expert in your field. And this person is also going to grade it. So it's important that the scientific justification is written concisely and above all clearly, so it's understandable. We highly recommend the use of figures and tables because they provide more clarity, and that people stay within the 2-page limit for the text, because a longer proposal is not necessarily a better proposal. And then regarding the technical justification, well, this is also very important, because based on that, the justification of the observing request, the EVN Program Committee will judge whether it is feasible to answer your science question with those observations that you propose. And there is a number of things that you should justify, such as the time on source, the data rate, observing frequency, and others. I would like to highlight perhaps 2 of these, in particularly the time on source. So when asking for a time on source, people, of course, always think about the sensitivity and give us the number from the EVN calculator or now the observations planner. But please do not forget also the UV coverage that you may need for doing your science. Because especially if your target is not a point source and you want to have high image fidelity, you will require a well-sampled UV plane. And I tried to make a very easy, a quick example of that. You see 2 images below of the same target, 4C52. One is a 10-minute snapshot taken from the data, and the other is an image based on full track, almost 400 minutes of observations. So you can see that with, of course, a better UV coverage, you can better recover the flux distribution. And of course, also the beam will be much better behaved. Now, the other thing that I wanted to highlight here is regarding choosing the operational mode, which is something particular for the EVN. So would you want your data to be observed in disk recording or EVLBI? So the EVN observes in EVN sessions. There's 3 of them a year. You can see them more or less highlighted in this cartoon on the bottom, which depicts a year. And during these EVN sessions, we use disk recording. Data are recorded on disks at the stations and will then be shipped to the correlator at Jive and put in the correlator queue and then correlated, and after that distributed to you. In this EVN sessions, you can ask for the highest data rate that we offer at the moment, which is 4 gigabit per second. You can also do multiple phase centers because the data is first recorded and afterwards correlated. There is this flexibility. On the other hand, we have EVLBI sessions. And in these sessions, your data is correlated in real time, which of course saves you a lot of time. You will have your data much faster delivered to you because you avoid the 2 steps in the disk recording mode. In the cartoon here below, you see that there are 10 EVLBI sessions. Each of them is 24 hours. And they are more distributed across the year, allowing perhaps a better cadence of the observations. In this EVLBI days, you cannot do multiple phase centers. Your data rate is limited to 2 gigabit per second at the moment. And each of these observing days is only done at one frequency determined by the highest graded project. In addition, on these EVLBI days, the session, the schedule might be overturned by a higher graded trigger proposal. What I want to say here is that clearly EVN sessions and EVLBI sessions have different capabilities, and you should choose based on what you need for your science, what is most important to you. Then how do you have to submit your proposal? So I discussed 3 different types of proposals, and we have at the moment 3 different types of sending them to the EVN PC. Regular and correlated proposals, those at the 3 deadlines per year, are submitted through the North Star proposal submission tool. Target of opportunity proposals are submitted by email, and you have to download a later cover sheet from the EVN website, compile that, attach your scientific and technical justification, and send everything together to the EVN PC chair, the EVN scheduler, and the EVN user support. And finally, the short observation requests, they just require you to put some information into an email, and then you can send that off to the EVN PC chair, EVN scheduler, and the EVN user support. Now we understand, we had comments from the users that this was not an ideal situation, and we agree. We are currently working on having the target of opportunity proposals to be also submittable through North Star, providing more uniformity for the ways of submitting. At the moment that this will be available, it will be, of course, announced on the website. Now, how are EVN proposals evaluated? They are evaluated by the EVN Program Committee, which has 15 members at the moment, 13 voting members and 2 non-voting members. The non-voting members are the EVN scheduler, Alastair Gunn, and the correlator technical representative, Bob Campbell. The other 13 voting members have been chosen by the consortium board of directors for their scientific and technical experience and to have a broad scientific knowledge so that we can judge any kind of proposal. At the moment, 8 people are from EVN institutes and 5 people are from non-EVN institutes. Now at the moment, I am the chairperson of the program committee, but from the 1st of August, Zsolt Paragi from JIVE will become the EVN PC chair. Now, about 1 month after the deadline of the proposals, the EVN PC will meet in person or since last year on Zoom to discuss the proposals that were submitted. And at this PC meeting, each proposal receives a final grade and an evaluation. If you have asked in your proposal for inclusion of other antennas, such as eMerlin antennas, then the other time allocation committees will be consulted on this inclusion. So for eMerlin proposals, we consult with the eMerlin time allocation group, and they have a yes or no vote on the inclusion. For global proposals involving NRAO or GBO antennas, the final grade is the average between the NRAO GBO vote and the EVN PC vote. Then about 2 months after the proposal deadline, the results are communicated by email to the PIs. In this email, we provide a summary feedback, scientific and technical, based on the PC meeting discussion, plus also the comments of the individual referees. And of course, after that, successful projects are then contacted by the EVN scheduler and Jive user support to prepare the project for the observing queue.
2 minutes, Kazi.
Perfect. So this is my last point, which was already highlighted by Paco. Now we have a new channel for communication with the user base. This is called the EVN Ideas Mailbox. You can find it on the website. And this has been commissioned by the EVN Consortium Board of Directors because they want to be aware of the user's necessity to keep them being able to do excellent science as they are doing now. So exactly for those kind of things, what would you need to do your science? Are the EVN capabilities at the moment, are they sufficient for that? Is the EVN, in your opinion, accessible enough? Or would you need some other kind of tools to help you with your writing a better proposal? All these kind of ideas and suggestions to improve the EVN for your scientific exploitation, this is what we want to know from you. So in this website, you will find a simple Google web form. And when you fill it out, it will go to the EVN PC chair, who can then act on your suggestion, also interact with you. And if necessary, bring this idea to the board of directors to discuss it. So I would like to end with the note that your feedback is important for keeping the EVN also in the future to do excellent and groundbreaking science. And yeah, please contact us also in the Discord channels or also personally in Discord with your questions and comments.
Thank you very much, Kazi. I think it's a very good summary of all the access mechanisms to the EVN. Of course, not necessary to remember them. All this information is in the website.
Sure.
And, we have a couple of minutes if people want to make any question or any comment to Kazi's talk. I don't see any now at the chat. Noemi, do you see any? Not in Discord either?
No, I don't.
Okay. If there are no specific questions, we will add.
I think Ilse has a question.
Oh, Ilse, there you go.
Thanks. Maybe half question, half a remark. Since I think it will be very valuable to also get feedback from junior scientists, do you think it's not too big of a hurdle to write to the EVN PC and know that this goes directly to the board? I know that as a PhD for myself, I would have been very shy and probably not said anything, discussed it with my supervisor, but then you get a filter already.
So I don't mean that it needs to go directly to the board. I mean, you can also approach the EVN PC chair personally. I think what I wanted to say that if somebody has an idea which is of such, some things can be maybe even small, require changes on the website, and this the EVN PC chair can do together with Jive staff. Right? These are easy things to implement, and it's always worth to do so if the information flow is improved. If the idea is thought though very good, but it would require a significant change, then of course this is out of our bounds that we can, as the EVN PC, that we can do. And this is something that I think also the board of directors would be very interested in knowing about.
Yeah, no, I definitely.
And I think a person can of course also ask not to be mentioned. I mean, I think at the moment this message is going to go just to the EVN PC chair.
Yeah.
Already at this moment is set as such that it arrives to me and Zsolt, but it does not automatically land in the inbox of all the directors. Absolutely not.
No, that. I think that was clear, but I think the threshold for some people, even if it's, in your opinion, just the EVN PC chair, there may be a bit of a threshold still, and I think it's valuable to explore if we can lower that even further. I've seen from experience that people are still somewhat reluctant when they feel there is a power balance, but I think if we should stress that this is accessible for everybody, for every concern that they may have, and then please contact us, even if you think it's a minor thing.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, thank you, Ilse, for underlining that.
This is yet another tool, another new tool for contact that I think it could be. We will have to evaluate how it works, and indeed the anonymous part could help in some aspect. There are 3 questions and not a lot of time. So Kazi, one from Michal Durjasz, who says integration of target of opportunity proposals in North Star as work in progress, but when? Okay, so it's really, Bob Elderling and Bob Campbell are working on it right now. If they are here, they can provide a more precise timeline. I would be hoping within the end of this year, but I don't, since I'm not doing that. Bob, are you connected?
I mean, it's one of those things we started along with several other things that just has to get enough test time to make sure we don't have any hidden problems in it. It's the basic outline would be like you'd have now you have EVN plus eMerlin and you have global. There'd be another one of those categories at the same level. And it basically wouldn't have a deadline. Now there are deadlines, you submit something, no one sees it until the deadline passes. So you can always be working on it. This would be something you submitted and it's in the system immediately. And it would get distributed accordingly. So the idea would be to move some of the administrative burden off the proposer onto us. But yeah, I mean, like anything in the North Star, there's always a bit of possibility of unexpected behavior. So we just want to make sure that all these submission things are working as they expect.
It is
we have recently updated the LaTeX template though. So if you'd had problems with that, there was a bug in it, so that should be fixed. And it is fixed.
Thanks, Bob. There is another question, this from Zandor, and I see that you, Kazi, have already prepared a reply. What is the general trend on proposal pressure on the EVN? Yeah, so we had, looking back, we had in 2018, and in particular in 2019, we had received rather few proposals, mainly also few proposals that requested few hours. And so you see that somehow it's shown here in blue. You see the total what is proposed, and in red you see total which is observed. So this then can be combined in a oversubscription factor. So you see, well, that was in 2017, it was around 2. In the last 3 years, this has dropped. 2018, 2019 saw a factor about 1.5, and 2020 has had a factor of about 1.8. So if this answers your question, no, the other graphs I have are not regarding that. All these statistics need always a story. Because of course you also reach the requested sensitivity much faster with less observing hours. Now we have another question. I think there was another question from Denise, I think, but not anymore. Denise. Okay. Otherwise, we move to the next speaker, which is, thank you very much, Kazi, Alastair Gunn, the EVN scheduler, who will tell us about how is the scheduling of EVN observations. Alastair?
Hi, I assume you can all see that?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get to the crux of the issue. When will my observations be done? So I'd like to say just a couple of things before I show you some statistics. The first is that the EVN observing queue is not really a queue, it's a pool. So there's really nothing chronological about the way that the observations are done. It's basically based on grade. Second thing is that you don't need to worry that you are going to be forgotten, that your observations will be forgotten, that once you're in the pool, the queue, you are there till your observation is done or it expires. Now, I'm happy for you to contact me, but if you haven't heard from me already, then my likely response is that it won't be done yet. So the question is, when will my observations get done? So this is a plot of, all these data, by the way, are based on about 8 years of data, so 8 years of proposals. So this is a plot of the number of proposals at each grade. And you can see on the right-hand side, there is also columns for proposals which have been rejected, resubmitted, cancelled, or withdrawn. But it's really the graded ones that you want to concentrate on. So you can see that this shows you the number of proposals at each grade which have been performed in the last 8 years. And the percentages above those columns show you the percentage of those grades which were actually performed, and the red little bits are the observations at each of those grades which expired. So this shows you your probability of being observed at each grade. So you can see if you get a 1.1 or a 1.2, you're more or less guaranteed to get your observations. If you get 1.3 or 1.4, there's a very small chance, around 3–4%, that you will not get observed. At 1.5, it takes a little bit of a nosedive, but you still got a 4 in 5 chance of having your observations performed. I should say that the statistics for grades of 1.6, 1.7, and 1.8 are small number statistics, so you can probably ignore those, simply because not a lot of people get that kind of grade. So the next plot is, when will my observations get performed? So what this plot shows is, for each proposal grade, is the number of days that elapse between the proposal submission deadline and the time at which they get observed. So these numbers might look a little bit large, but of course you can immediately subtract about 60 days from that, which is the time period between your proposal being put in and you getting your grade from the EVN PC. So the two horizontal lines here show the average days after a proposal deadline, which for the end of each of the next 1 and 2 sessions. So what you can see from this is that if you get a grade of 1.1 to 1.4, your observations can often happen in the next available session, sometimes a little bit later. I would ignore the red dot there for 1.6 grade, because that again is small number statistics. But it means that for 1.5 grades and below, then you're more likely to be put into the second session after your proposal is available for observation. But I should point out that these are actually the median numbers here, but the range in the number of days elapsed for each grade varies quite substantially, from something like 60 days up to, in some cases, nearly 1,000 days. So before talking about what you need to get observed, here's an interesting plot for you. So this is the plot of all the GSTs of all observations done in the last 8 years by the EVN. And what it shows you is that the demand for GST is not uniform. So you can see that at a GST of 17 hours, it's almost about twice as popular as a GST of around 2. Now you could argue about the reason for that, but it's almost certainly because of 17 GST is probably the highest elevation of the galactic plane at the array phase center. I haven't checked that, but that's almost certainly what it is. So that shows you that your GST actually is a factor in getting observed, because if you have a low grade and you're asking for a very popular GST, then you're likely to get passed over. So let me just run through quickly what the factors are determining whether you get observed and when you get observed. So the most important one is your grade. So I've shown you a plot of your likelihood of getting observed for each grade. So when I schedule, the higher grades get scheduled first, and so on. But it's not always as simple as that. So lower grades can get observed if they fit in the block schedule. So for example, if they've got an unpopular GST, there might be a gap for a very low graded proposal. The other thing, of course, is disk availability. This can be critical sometimes. So there is times where we have to drop, or I have to drop experiments from the schedule because their demand on disk space is enormous compared to more highly graded proposals. But it's not possible to tell you what how large the largest proposal should be, because obviously you ask for what your science requires, and if the proposal has gone through and been accepted, then the EVN has accepted that it requires that amount of media. I've already mentioned the GST range because the demand is not uniform. The requested band. All bands are not always available at all stations, so it depends on whether or not there is an adequate array available at that band in the session for which I'm considering your proposal. Your requested array is also important. So and your time. So one thing I would advise people is when they're doing their proposals is to be very, very careful and specific about what GST you're asking for. Often people don't fill these in, or they fill them in incorrectly. Obviously for trigger proposals, you can't say that, but it saves me a lot of time and hassle if I know exactly what GST range that you want. Your cadences. So for example, you might want 3 frequencies in one session. You might want observations in every session for the next 2 years. That has to be taken into account. So certainly in every single session, there are already ring fence observations that were started in previous sessions. And that affects whether or not even a high graded proposal can be fit in. They also take into account whether it's a student project. If that's in your proposal, then I will have a slight tendency to favor student projects because they need to be done sooner rather than later. Obviously, station availability is important. So globals that requires sort of GBT, VLBI, VLA, KVN, the DSN. It's quite a job to make sure that everybody's available when required for specific observations. So that has to be taken into account. Station capabilities, of course, change all the time. So suddenly a station might not have, say, an L-band receiver and you require that station, then you'll have to wait until it's available. Again, correlated capabilities, similar problem. Of course, there's always station failures. So again, that can affect whether or not your observation can be done. So how do you maximize your chances? This is my last slide, so I'll quickly run through how to maximize your chances of being observed timely. Well, first of all, get a better grade. That's the essential thing. The better your grade, the more likely you'll get observed, and the more likely you'll get observed sooner rather than later. That's the overriding factor. Ask for what you want, but also, I should say, don't expect to add to it later, because I will schedule what your proposal asks for. And if you then ask for something different to that, that requires the EVN PC to intervene again and to allow that. And be definitive about what GST dates, any of the constraints that you have on your proposal, be very definitive about them. This is probably obvious, but ask for the minimum to achieve your aims. I mean, you can ask for more and hope for the best, but the more you ask for, the more constraints you're putting on getting your observations done. Or just make it clear that there is a minimum requirement. That you ask for a lot, but you say that it can be done with this minimum. And probably the most important thing after your grade is to minimize the constraints, because each time you add to the parameter space, it narrows the window for your observation to be done. So if you make things complicated in terms of the array, the external telescopes that you need, the dates, the times, the sessions, which year, what the cadence is, how much disk space you need, how many bands you need, how many bands spread out over the year you need, etc., etc. The more constraints you add to it, the more difficult my job is in finding you a spot. So I think that's it. I'll finish there.
Thank you very much, Alastair. Thank you very much. Actually, it's very important to understand what is in the mind and what are the tools and conditions by which the scheduler has to work. The scheduling is both a science and an art, I would say. So thank you for that. Is there any question? Sandor, how the COVID situation affected the sessions in general in 2021, 2020, 2021, and is it recovering more or less by now?
Well, there was an effect in session 1 of last year, where several stations were not able to participate.
Session 2.
But it didn't actually affect things too badly. I mean, I think the what we call the observing efficiency, which is essentially the number of hours we can observe divided by the number of hours we do observe, did take a drop. Generally, it's between about 40 up to 60%, and I think on that particular one, it went down to about 30. But after session 1 last year, there have been no real significant effects from COVID restrictions. So all observatories are operating almost the way they would do anyway. So I don't see any changes at all.
I think it's fair to say that the EVN, both the stations and the correlator, have done a fantastic effort and a fantastic work to minimize the impact of COVID, and that has been seen in the results as well. I don't see any other urgent question at least. We will have a bit of time later. So thank you, Alastair. Before the last talk, let me mention that we will have a break, a very short break, okay, just to stretch the legs. And we intend to take a photograph of those of you who want, just when we come back from the break. So you will be asked to open your video, voluntary, of course, and we will try to take a very, very fast photograph of the participants in the users meeting. So our last talk for this part is both for Ilse van Bemmel and Benito Marcote from Jive, and it's about the resources that are available for the users. Your floor.
Okay, can you see the main? I hope so.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm Benito Marcote. I'm one of the support scientists of the EVN working on Jive. And in this part of the meeting, basically, I would like to summarize all the resources that we have for all the users and all the help that we can offer. So here, basically, I will do a brief and really quick summary on all the parts that we've been working since the previous symposium, a couple 3 years ago. So what has been improved during these years? And of course, we always want to have more feedback from everyone using the EVN, what can be improved, where we should focus on, or what we can develop. So for that, during the symposium, we have the Discord channel when you can ask or do all your discussions, questions, comments, the user support email, where we all receive if you have doubts on anything about the EVN and how to schedule, observe, prepare the proposals. And we would love to get basically any feedback from everyone. So of course, I think everyone has a clear way of what they want. Basically, every astronomer has a target source that he is interested in, and basically wants to observe with the EVN and instruments. So basically get data on that target and analyze it in a way that you get significant results that you can at least publish or report on. And we all want to do this process as quick as possible, as transparent and as easy as possible. But of course, from the first part of getting a proposal idea, a target that can be observed, to the very end, which is when you publish the data, it requires a number of different steps. And we offer help or some tools in some cases for every single step. We know that we can significantly improve on every single of them. And that's basically why we ask in this user meeting and also any other time during other channels to know what you are missing and what's the best or biggest parts that you think we can improve. So here we have basically 10 minutes. I will just summarize on the parts that has changed during the last symposium and cover basically the main parts of these ones. Of course, you can have a great idea about a target that can be observed. For that, obviously, you always need to be sure that that target can be observed and you can reach wherever you want to do with the EVN. And now we have a new website during the last years that still is under construction, but basically we are following in a common place all the information that you may want and you want to read from this process, and following basically the previous pattern. From the very beginning, proposal idea, you can get to know what other science can be done with the EVN, what other people can do, so you can put it together with your plans, and also what the data is available there, or what can you use it to the scheduling, observations, and everything. So we are following this one. We hope that this format is more straightforward, especially if you are new to the network. Of course, and then I will summarize some of the different processes here and different tools that we've done. The first thing is to get to know what is the EVN, what we can observe, and if your target can be observed, can be detected, is the best network for you. So for that, we've now done a new page in the website, basically summarizing within the same place everything that you can do or you cannot do, or what you need. So with this one, we hope that it's clear if you want to propose for a target, what you can do or what you can expect. But of course, one of the main issues that we had in the last years, it's about be sure if your source can be observable and what sensitivity, resolution you can expect from any EVN observations. So until now, we had basically two parts that you need to do even during the proposal preparation to be sure that the sources can be observed. One was SCED, because it's the tool that you use to prepare all the EVN observations, but actually it was kind of the only way to be sure if all stations, which stations, and the GST range that the scheduler and the proposal tool requires about when your sources can be observed. And on the other hand, you had the EVN calculator to have an estimation of the sensitivity that you can achieve with a given network configuration. So with a given number of antennas and given observing time. We know that this could have been highly improved, and that's why in the last years we've been working on a new tool that has been online for the basically beginning of the year, that is the observation planner. And this intends to do all this part way easier. So then you don't need to build a dummy schedule to be sure when the source can be observed. And also you can get more realistic sensitivity and resolution values. And even more importantly, it's meant to get a balance between the two parts that you can have. We know that we have new users that you are not that used to the EVN yet. So in that case, we can a simple process where you can put the basics you want to observe with the EVN, that source for that given amount of time, and then you will get basically what you can achieve. And if you really want to go into more details about specifying some particular antennas or another setup, frequency configuration that is not the default one, you can still do it, and then you can get a more realistic values to prepare the observations, which is meant basically for the proposal part, but also during not the schedule preparation, but if you want to know when they can be observed and what to expect from there. Of course, once you've done a proposal, you got time, and then your observation is scheduled. You still need to prepare the schedule in the general case for the regular observations. If it's the real time, typically we do the schedules and then we just verify with you that this is what you want. And depending on the complexity of the experiment, we may require a bit more or a bit less, depending on how clear it is for us what you want and how we can schedule it. But for that, you basically always need to use SCED to prepare the observations. That maybe was not that intuitive, at least for the beginning tool. In the last years, we've published the PySCED version, which is basically a Python tool built on SCED, which makes this part a bit easier in the sense also for installation if you are the first time that you are using it. And also it adds another features that are not inside SCED, like basically the main one for us is that you don't need anymore to wait for us to get a final station catalogs with the information on the frequencies that they can do and the location of these stations. This will be retrieved automatically by PySCED. So basically in the schedule, you can focus only on what you want, the sources that you can observe, coordinates, and the scans. And we've also built a new page in the website explaining all the steps and what you need to consider during the the schedule preparation. And basically we highlight the parts that you need to focus on or what parts can be ignored. And of course, sorry. Once we've conducted observations, we do the correlation at Jive, and then we do the processing of pre-processing of the data. So you can get it in the best shape as we can so far. And then you can access your data from the Jive data archive. This is one of the other parts that we also identify that is not really intuitive and a bit obscure for most of the people, especially when you need to identify which are the sources that you are interested in, basically to help in your calibration or what data you should download. So we are actually currently working on a new version of the archive that hopefully they will significantly improve this part, and you will see it in the coming months, or at least probably, yeah, in the coming months. We still don't have a expected time, but it's already coming. And finally, once you receive the data, of course, you still need to analyze it. We have a pipeline, but it doesn't guarantee scientific results, at least for now. So you still need to do a manual data reduction. So for that, we have some tutorials in different schools. We had a user guide. We've been improving this one, especially in these times where most of the users still use apes, but we already have some using CASA to analyze EVN data. So in that case, first, we are starting to replicate the traditional EVN data reduction guide to support both apes and CASA. So you have in parallel which are the tasks or functions that you need to run in one or the other, so you can be sure if you are doing the transition why you do one in one software or on the other. We are still working on further tutorials. more detailed tutorials in some parts of the calibration, and especially in some typical problems that you may see in the data. So we would like to put on the information online so you are able to recognize possible issues or how to treat that depending on what you see in your data. And of course, that's the online capabilities that we offer. We always have visits and different training and schools at Jive. This year has been a bit different, of course, because the visits have been highly limited because COVID. But in a normal year, and once everyone else start to opening again, we have visits. You can visit Jive, especially if you are PI of one observation that has been conducted. And we help with you, and we do the data reduction training. So you can reduce the data with us, and then we are in the same room. So you can learn all the processes and discuss with us all the issues. We also have there is a school every 2 years, which is meant to basically new users and trying to learn how to analyze radio data, and also VLBI. We had different training programs that will resume after COVID. And of course, at any time, you have our support email, any of us, if you receive the observation from any of the support scientists. We can also provide virtual support nowadays with Zoom or any other tool, as the traveling is harder. During these days, we have the Discord channel that you can approach to discuss anything that you go on. And as he has been previously mentioned, we've opened a new mailbox in the EVN website. When we would like to get any feedback from you. And also we had, probably you receive, and if not, please log into the user feedback poll that we opened last week. So you can give us even a more detailed feedback on all the tools that we have online and all the support that we provide. And basically that will help us to identify which are the main parts where we can improve or what is still missing. And I will head to Ilse that will give the 2 slides on the second part.
Yep, thanks, Benito. So thanks everybody for your patience. We're running a bit late, but this is only a few minutes. So I'm Ilse van Bemmel. I work in the Technical Operations Group, or R&D group, in Jive. And I just wanted to highlight a few things that we are working on, which are part already available for use and are coming online really soon. The first thing is the CASA for EVN data calibration. There is currently a CASA release 5.8, which is based on Python 2, or 6.2 if you want to move on to Python 3, which I would strongly recommend. And there is already a significant support for data processing in VLBI data processing in this package at the moment. So you should definitely start using the CASA 6 if you're a new user, because the CASA 5 releases will stop after this, which means you'll have to move to Python 3. The CASA input uses the measurement set, which is at the moment not directly available from the EVN archive, but there are scripts available for you to modify the data such that you can actually import it into CASA and include all the calibration data that you would require. If you want to learn a little bit more about this, there are Jupyter notebooks available. You can download them from the Jive code server. There is a tutorial which uses an NME experiment. And the tutorial notebook also links to quite a few hands-on training programs from the DARA school, but also from our local notebooks. So if you're starting on this, this is a very good place to begin. And we have developed a template EVN continuum notebook, which is currently being used for processing data sets. It's not completely compatible with everything, but I think at the moment, at least 80% of the continuum experiments should be able to be processed with this. We're working on a template also for spectral line observations. That will take a little bit longer, but it should be coming soon. I hope by the end of this year that we have a prototype for this available. Also, the poster from Michal Janssen, poster number 16, highlights a lot of the steps, and actually is a little bit of a user manual for processing EVN data or any VLBI data really with CASA, and also the RP card pipeline, which can actually do this for you completely automatically. One thing to highlight for training, yes, thanks Benito, that's fine. For training purposes, there is the CASA VLBI school. We had one last November, and there's probably going to be one next year or the year after for sure. And we noticed that it's becoming really popular. So we had 200 participants registered last year, and I watched the YouTubes. We have over 150 views on the more popular lectures. So it's really starting to pick up. The reason we are investing time in this is because we are working towards a science platform. So this is something that will be coming available fairly soon. I hope after the summer, early this fall. It's part of the ESCAPE project and making the data access fair. And it means that as a user, you can start to process your data on the Jive machines, which means you no longer need to download the data first to your machine. You're no longer limited by your own computational resources, and especially for larger data sets, that can be a major benefit. And this is all based on the Jupyter Lab environment, and this is what you access with your browser. So if you can press return, Benito, to show the image. This is what you will start to look at. There's an environment where you can access the notebooks and also terminals and everything else. And even if you look at the bottom, the EVN archive is being added to this. And this is work mostly done by Art Kuipema in Jive. And he just mentioned that this is now almost fully functional. We're just testing the last bits and pieces of it. So the idea is that when you've got your observations and it's been pre-processed by the support scientists, a notebook is coupled to your EVN observation, which you can then open up through this interface and start working and adjust values in the notebook as you might want to improve on your science calibration. This should hopefully become available later this year, and we look forward to hearing your experiences with this. Let me see, did I miss anything that I wanted to say? Yeah, there will be an EVN newsletter article on this topic at the end of this year, just before the February deadline, so it should come out somewhere in December. And if you're interested in virtual observatory tools, that's also something we're starting to explore. So please contact us if you want to learn more about that. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ilse, Benito. I think it's very nice to see how new tools and more user-friendly environments are coming also into the EVN. Very nice. I don't see any specific question. If there is, please raise your hand.
Yes, Ilse.
Ilse? Zsolt, yes.
So if I want to use this lovely platform, can I use my own developed notebook on it, or I can only use that are available already?
No, you can put anything in there that you want. You can download your own notebook into or upload whichever direction you want. You're in Jive, so it could be either way, and have your own repositories in there, and basically do whatever you like. Build your own scripts. It's going to be very flexible, but the idea is that the basic input for users is a predefined notebook with their data set, which is connected, and that if there's changes to this, it can also be uploaded again to the Jive server. So we can see for a given publication how the data was processed, and that is part of the whole FAIR principle.
Very nice. Another question from John McKean. Will all future ARIES and VLBI school tutorials be CASA only?
I hope so, yes. The last ARIES in 2019 was already CASA only for VLBI. And since then, we have definitely improved a lot in the functionality in CASA for VLBI. And I just heard that even NRAO is picking up on this and starting to support the development on their end with additional resources. So I expect that this is going to be the main processing package for VLBI. I see somebody saying APES is becoming obsolete. Well, actually, it's been obsolete since many years. But as long as Eric Gryson is still actively involved in this, NRAO is fine with doing stuff. But if he ever would decide to discontinue working on this, then we no longer have an active APES developer.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. We're going to make a small break now of less than 10 minutes, I would say, and come back. Please, let's do the effort of be all back at 4:15. And then we will take a quick picture and get into the end of the meeting, which actually is the user experience, which we are all very interested to hear. Okay, so don't go far away. We are back here at 4:15. Thank you. Okay, so we are slowly coming back. So just before we get to the users' experiences, that we have two talks, and then the last about the user feedback. I suggest you turn on the video for, if you want. This is voluntary, as I say, for half a minute. I will take a number of pictures. See, now I see the faces of many nice, good friends. Good to see you. That's great. Okay, I will do this very, very fast. So, okay, ready? One. I just passed the screen. I have a couple of screens here. Two, smile. So now that Roberto has sat in his chair, we can take it again. Smile. There you are. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Now, now we have a good memory of today. And with no more entertaining, we go to thank you very much to the two users who have we will be giving us their own view of what their experience has been by using the EVN. The first one, Sravani Vaddi, sorry if I didn't say well, Sravani Vaddi, for a continuum project. Yeah, the floor is yours, Sravani.
Hi. Good morning and good evening, everyone. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm Sravani Vaddi. I'm a postdoc at the Arecibo Observatory. I study active galactic nuclei at multiple wavelengths and use radio interferometry. While I had experience with VLBI datasets before, this was the first time I was handling an EVN dataset. And my experience with the Jive's user support so far and overall has been really positive and encouraging. So the first thing that you get is an acceptance email. So I was really filled with joy when I saw that the proposal was accepted. This proposal was aimed to observe dual active galactic nuclei in the continuum mode. We observed 4 sources at 18 centimeter for 12 hours. And these observations were conducted in the electronic VLBI technique, where the data was sent immediately in real time to the correlation site on a high-speed network, in contrast to the classic VLBI, where the data is first recorded in this and shipped to the correlation site. The receiver was configured with 16 megahertz bandwidth and divided into 32 spectral channels. Since the dual agents that I was interested in had nuclei that are not widely separated and they fall within the primary beam of the antenna, what we did was to tap the benefits of the multi-phase center technique and obtain visibilities for each of the 2 nuclei in one pointing itself. And this was achieved by simply repointing the correlated data set to a new phase center. Initially, we were allocated about 15 antennas. Later, it was reduced to 12 antennas. And unfortunately, ZC and T6 could also not participate due to, I think, antenna problem and maintenance in the at these stations. But then I did get some good time and data using these 10 antennas. This observation was conducted during the COVID period. I want to take this opportunity to really thank the EVN team for carrying out these observations even under such stressful and less favorable conditions. Oops. So after the proposal acceptance, there was regular communication with the EVN scheduler, and the scheduling process went really smooth. I received help from Bob, Alastair, and Danya during various stages of scheduling and observation setup. Bob has been really very patient and very, very helpful. There was a wealth of information I see in every of his email reply. We had very good email discussions on this multi-phase center setup, preparing the key file. For example, I'm just giving a snapshot of the key file that we eventually generated, and then discussion on using the shed tool, thereby which was used to generate the VEX files. And now comes the tricky part. After the targets were observed, I was excited to look at the data. The pipeline products page was, and I would say is, helpful to get the first-hand information on the data set. It could, I could clearly see, how the calibrated data set looked like, what are the good antennas, what are the timelines I need to flag bad data sets. So in that way, the pipeline products page was useful. The pipeline calibrated image, however, had phasing issues, and I was unable. I mean, I did not see a detection in this, which is shown in the bottom panel. I'm unfortunately not able to hover my mouse, but then I went ahead calibrating the dataset manually, which produced a detection. Zsolt has been really very, very helpful in this process. We met online through Skype and Zoom meetings, and he introduced diffmap to me, and I found it really useful in parsing the dataset to find and flag the bad data, as well as to do the initial calibration and the self-cal. So I was also asked to provide information about any problems that I have faced. Well, I do not see any major concern with the EVN resources that are available. The support that I had received has been very wonderful and great, and definitely with no issues. But if I had to point out any improvements, then I guess there are three things that I think could be improved. One is the accessibility to the EVN archive. So far, I have found somewhere in the web page this fits finder tool to be useful in searching for the sources based on their RA and declination. Well, it would have been useful if I could have searched with the source name itself. That would have been easier. But I think there could be more improvements on this tool. I found this to be extremely slow, and in the output page after you search, I find some redundant information. I think this not a big deal, but this can be handled. The second thing is the EVN data reduction guide is very useful. However, I felt it would have been more explanation on the input parameters and what values you use and why the values are suggested or recommended. That information could be very useful in the EVN data reduction guide. And the third thing is the diff map. Diff map has been used and been recommended at Jive, so I thought it would have been helpful if the tutorial was made available. And the thing is, we have CASA, APES, and diff map, and we were going interchangeably among these three tools. So that I found was little trickier and time consuming, but of course I have learned these tools to use, and they have their own benefits. Yeah, I think these were the only three concerns I have, and that's it. That I can take up questions.
Thank you very much, Sravani. Well, it's really great to see that you have both a an overall positive experience, but also you have very nice suggestions, and there is room for improvement. Thank you so much for sharing your experience with us. Any question, even any question from the people who have been named in the talk? Question or comment to Sravani?
I wasn't addressed, but do your comment about the FitsFinder tool? Yes, it's well known that it is very, very slow. And I think the virtual observatory protocol should be allowing you to query much faster in the future. And that is something that is already set up as a test server. And we expect that to come online or publicly accessible in the VO somewhere during the remainder of this year. But if you want to compare your FitsFinder experience, you can contact us because the URL is available, but not public yet, not publicized.
Okay, that sounds wonderful. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Harold, for the comment. Any other comment? I don't see raised hands.
Maybe I could comment on DiffMap. So yeah, it was a fantastic experience to work with you, Sravani. I never thought about this DiffMap tutorial because there is already a very easy guide for how to use DiffMap available on the internet. But maybe you are right. It's it might be worth putting something together that also passes some of this experience what we have regarding the EVN data and how it is best to approach it with DiffMap and other tools. So yes, we will consider it. Thank you.
Thank you, Zsolt.
Thank you. Okay, any other comment now? Otherwise, we will be moving. Thank you, Sravani. Thank you very much again. We will be moving to our other user experience, this one on Spectral Line project. Michal Durjasz.
Hello.
One. Hello.
Okay, hello. Screen sharing. I need to choose a proper option for screen sharing. Okay. So which? Oh, this is difficult to share a proper screen. So maybe that will be the way. Okay. And yeah. I hope it's visible now.
It is. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, hello. I am here to talk about my EVN user experience with the Spectral project. And of course, who I am to talk about EVN. I'm a PhD student, and I started my PhD 2 years ago. And I've had 5 successful EVN proposals up to this date, and 3 regular, 2 target opportunities. And I will talk probably about the last proposal I've did. Okay. And the first part, general, so it's writing a proposal. My experience with writing a proposal is like 50-50, because there is North Star that is the main proposal tool, and it's very nice in my opinion. It helps out with setup, especially with specifying the required bandwidth of the recording speed. Oh, this is the word I was looking for. But of course, there is no LaTeX template for scientific and technical justification for regular proposals. Of course, there are also target opportunity proposals, and we cannot use North Star for it. But there is LaTeX template for it. The ideal situations would be if we had LaTeX templates for both types of proposals, and if both of them were available through the North Star. Of course, I know this problem is being addressed right now, and I feel that like most of my concerns are being addressed right now. So, okay, scheduling of the observations, and there are sites that helps out massively with schedule when you want to schedule your observations. Of course, this site, it's the first site that appears if you type in Google VLBI scheduling, and I think this is probably the old version of this site. and I don't know if why it's there. It should be probably removed or something. And of course, because even the EVN plan is up to the first session of 2020. So, but of course, if you are dig a bit deeper, you will find the proper site. And of course, there are people that were very helpful with scheduling, especially Bob, because Bob is very helpful. He answered every question I had, and his answers were very helpful. And their insightfulness of the support scientists is very impressive. In my opinion, they even found some errors I made in my key file. For example, this one, as it's presented here, as I just wrongly typed the seconds for my target source. I did not. That was my mistake. That was just my mistake, and they've noticed it. So this is very nice. I like this level of excitefulness. It makes me make less mistakes. So okay, next step. PySched. This is best tool I've ever seen for scheduling. For first projects in probably 2017, I used as regular head tool, and I wasn't very impressed, but PySched is much better. It's much easier to use, and of course, it helps a lot with planning of the observations, especially this plot is probably the plot I use the most of the time, because in my opinion, it's most important. It's elevation versus UT time, and of course, it helps a lot to specify which antenna is not able to observe at this time. Of course, there are some other things that needs to be addressed, especially if a Forsberg needs to do some pointing every few hours. And this is very helpful from Baparso to help me out how to manage this in my key file. So scheduling, in my opinion, is probably the best part that is taken the most care of. People are very helpful. The software is very good for this. Okay, and the other stuff, next step is opportunity to visit Jive, and I think it's brilliant to have opportunity to travel and to talk with people that are doing this on a daily basis, and people are very helpful there, and they are experts in this manner, and they help me out a lot, especially with apes. When I first time did my data reduction, that was I struggled a lot because apes is not very easy to use package. Of course, not easy to use is understatement. Is damn hard to use, in fact. So it's nice to have to travel there to get a proper computer to do this stuff and to get people that will help you out. And they have available every day, a week. Of course, in fact, you can travel there for. As far as I remember, I was there for a week and a half, and this is not enough time to do first data reduction of the project, especially if you lack a proper pipeline, if there lacks a proper pipeline to do this data reduction. But most of this we managed to do in this time, so this is nice. Okay, my latest project, what I'm talking about, it's mapping sequence and gigahertz metanomases emission around CFUS A. And as you see, we had this source. It presents some quasi-periodic activity, especially these two mostly shifted features that are very low on amplitude compared to the rest of them. This spectrum that is presented with dashed line is magnified 50 times to show these features. And as you see from this scale, you can divide this by 50. This is about 5 Jainskis right next to the features that are almost 1,500 Jainskis. So imaging could be not trivial. Imaging this feature next to this could be not trivial, but in fact, EVN managed to do it quite well. Okay, so what are the parameters? 8 hours of observations. In fact, we proposed for 16, but of course, this is one part of the project, the CFUS A project. We had another source, but I won't talk about it right now because we did not process this data yet. Okay, so we did phase referencing. The beam size was 4.5 backseconds. Root mean square on single channel was 4 to 5 millijainskis per beam. Of course, this is root mean square on the channel that was without the emission, because when the emission appears, of course, the noise arises. Okay, we had 2 colorimeter passes. This is standard practice in our spectral observations. We had 8 BBCs and 128 channels each, and this allowed us to make good, decent fringe fitting on the phase referencing source, because it gets better result to noise ratio. And then we can transfer these observations, these results of fringe fitting, to our second pass with 1 BBCs and 2048 channels, which had which has decent spectral resolution. Of course, we encountered some problems because we proposed for 2 MHz beamwidth and we ended up with 4 MHz beamwidth, and with the same amount of channels, it gave us 2 times worse the channel separation we proposed for. This is due to a malfunctioning DBBC firmware that weren't able to process 2 MHz band anymore. So in fact, what we should have done is to use 2 times the channels and 4 MHz beamwidth, in fact, bandwidth, in fact. Bandwidth is the better one. Okay, these are the results of these observations. We had spectrum that is recovered with EVN, as you see, and the spatial distribution, especially this redshifted spots, their position was recovered well. Also, we did a comparison to previous observations of this source there are projects of Roberto Sanna from 2013, 2015, 2016, no, 2013, 14, and 15, sorry. And we did some proper motion estimations about especially this clamp, because this clamp appears only every 5 years. It presents this measure, this spots here presents some quasi-periodic activity. So comparing our results with Roberto Sanna's results allowed us to estimate some proper motions. They are not much different from other spots that are placed here in Alberto Sanna's work. Okay. Problems we encountered: data reduction. Of course, there's lack of pipeline for spectral observations. So I'm forced to do data reduction manually, and of course it takes a lot of time, especially if you want to compare your observations to observations made previously. So you don't know data for 3 to 4 projects. You have to process them all manually. It takes a lot of time. And of course, there is this APES versus CASA dichotomy. Of course, world is now switching to CASA, and APES becomes more and more obsolete right now. But still, EVN guides is focused. Standard EVN guide is too general for my liking, especially if you want to do the spectral observations. So what I needed to do was to do everything manually, and of course do it in APES. CASA lacks this functionality. As far as I know, CASA lacks some of the functions I need to do proper spectral data reduction. And of course, there are more advanced guides in the EVN site, but they're focused only on APES, of course. And they are hosted on the old version of websites. Okay, observations. Now, I told this previously, DBBC firmware does not support 2 MHz band anymore, as far as I know. We encountered problems with this band. So we were forced to use 4 MHz with the same amount of channels. It gave us 88 meters per second spectral resolution instead of 44 meters per second. So it's 2 times worse than projects we compare our data to. So this is 2 times worse resolution that had Alberto Sanna 5 years ago. Of course, this is not so bad because, in fact, our single dish spectral resolution is about this value, because we had channel separation similar to this, but we use Hanning smoothing in our data, so in fact the resolution is 2 times worse. This is not as bad. The result is not as bad, especially if you compare amazing clamps. So you just have the amazing clamps are like 2 times less spots you have into one clamp, and that's probably all. So, and we overlooked this, in fact, because this is spectral resolution is mentioned in SPI letter you receive, but I overlooked that, in fact. And when I asked for maybe recoloration or something, I noticed that given feedback that this data is not anymore, the EVN does not have this raw data anymore because this data was removed from flag, unfortunately. Of course, this is still very decent chunk of data, and probably will be used and will give great science. Okay. So projects with other people, as I mentioned, I also needed to download some data from projects of Alberto Sanna from 2013, 14, and 15. And of course, this data of Alberto Sanna is already published. So I knew the project code. And using the project code is probably the easiest way to look for the data. And that was the easy way. So I got easiest, but of course there is an interface for queries that include PI name and coordinates, but I found it very unfriendly, and as as far as was said, the results are not very pleasant to watch, of course. And what else? And of course, the availability of such things like pipeline plots key files, especially key files, because key files are crucial in doing proper Doppler tracking, for example. So availability of this type of data is very helpful, and I like it. And I think I'm a big fan. I can say I'm a big fan. And also I'm a big fan of EVN data policy, because EVN data policy says that after 1 year, your project is publicly available to everyone. And of course, target of opportunity, as far as I know, are half this time. So after 5 months, your data are publicly available. So you got like 1 year head start. But after this, everyone can use this data and do some science. I think this is cool because I like science to be more open source than proprietary. Okay, summary. Some summary LaTeX templates and Nockstar tools should be available for both regular and target of opportunity projects. Scheduling, in my opinion, is near perfect. Apps and Kaza, we need to fix this dichotomy. Probably switch more to Kaza in upcoming years. And discontinued support for 2 MHz bands should be more clearly communicated. We did not realize it. We did not realize about this fact. EVN archive websites should introduce better exposed interface for complex queries, like BI query, coordinate query, and other stuff. Okay, so that's all, the end.
Thank you very much, Michal, very much, because this is, again, raising some points in areas in which we could be improving the service, and also it is for sure always to be reminded that the spectral line observations demand a different level and a different concept of support than Continuum does. And your remark about the need to keep high spectral resolution is quite well taken. The fact that
exactly
sometimes what you get is not sufficient for the science that we want to know. Okay, comments or questions? Or yeah, Ilse?
Yes, thanks, Marco. Thanks, Michal. That was extremely helpful to see what you are encountering in the data processing. I think for the CASA side, there has been a significant increase in functionality for spectral line data processing. And we may not be entirely there yet, but I'd definitely be interested what problems you have encountered with the CASA processing, what specifically the things that were not present or what didn't work. And you may recall I mentioned we are working on the CASA a prototype spectral line pipeline together with, I'm doing it together with Olga. I'm not a spectral line person myself, so it's always a bit of a hit and miss. But if you have any feedback on that, that would also be extremely valuable. And that also goes to other spectral line users, of course.
Okay, if the spectral pipeline appears, I probably will try to use it and give some feedback about it. But I need to be noticed because this is something I probably will overlook in the future.
Yes. Well, if we will mark your name down for testing, and that would be extremely helpful to have somebody outside of Jive playing with these things.
Okay, so please mail me when it will be out. Okay.
Yes. Thank you. Will do.
You will not escape, Michel. Now you know where you are. Okay. Thank you very much. Well, there is quite a discussion in the chat and in the Discord channel on the duality of apes, diffmap, and triality, I would say, and the CASA. So I think that we can bring it back at the end of the session today as the discussion. Any other specific comment to Michal now? Noemi, do you see any? Kazi?
Yes. Hi, Michal. I just wanted to thank you very much for raising this point of spectral resolution. And I think this is something that we will look to improve that information on the website. So thank you very much.
In fact, we overlooked this because that could be noticed when we receive the PI letter. Because in the PI letter, you are informed about spectral resolutions you will receive with your data. And we just overlooked this fact because we're busy with other things at the time. Because it was about the time, as far as I remember, this was near the holiday break, and you know how it goes. In fact, so in fact, I think it's mostly my fault to overlook this fact.
Yeah, but probably it's good to have this information also available. We will check how it's available on the website because, in any case.
In fact, as far as I also received feedback from stations, I read feedback on EVN archive from stations in my June project. One station used beta software for their DBBC, and they thought that they thought that it's behaving strange. So in fact, I could notice this very much before, a few months before my project even started. So this is something that was probably overlooked by me.
Did you need actually to do an additional heading smoothing?
We need to do this with our single dish data.
Okay, but not with the EVN data.
We don't use with EVN data.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
We will also look again into the website, just to be sure that there is nothing orphan abandoned there in some areas and everything is consistent, okay, regarding the different areas where the parameters and the access are explained in the EVN website. Okay, so thanks for noting that as well. Okay, if there is no other specific question for Michal, thank you very much. Thank you to you and to Sravani for your sharing your experiences with us. Now we have the last presentation of the day, which is by Olga Bayandina from Jive, and she's gonna tell us what are the preliminary results from the EVN User Feedback Survey that was sent to all of you just about a week ago. Olga?
Yep, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Paco. I'm going to present a bit broader view on the EVN performance that we got with our EVN User Feedback Survey. First of all, I want to point out that the poll is still active. You can scan the QR code here or follow this link and vote for share your opinion with us, because so far we got only 41 response. That's I think pretty representative, but probably we can have more opinions, because so far what we got that mostly opinions of our senior users who are professors or faculty. So still opinion of younger new users bit missing, I suppose, but we got several responses from PhD students and postdocs as well. Most of the users who shared with us their opinions, they actually experienced users, or they had several proposals as PIs or co-PIs. We asked about the science that our users do with EVN. We had this list of possible answers, and based on our survey, most of the science is agents, but we also got a pretty nice representation from all the fields that we cover with EVN, and also got these several additional answers that we haven't even had in our on our list initially. We also asked about other VLBI networks that our users probably use or could use, and our main competitor apparently is VLBI, but our users also use many other VLBI networks, and here you can see the statistics. We asked what's the biggest advantage of observing with the EVN, and it looks like the main point here is sensitivity, but also our EVN functionality is a big plus, and of course angular resolution. Also, we asked, of course, about disadvantages of observing with EVN, and it was actually surprising that the biggest disadvantage seems to be limited observing period. At the moment, we have only 3 observing sessions per year, and it seems like our users would like to have more flexibility in sense of scheduling their observations. Also, of course, there are problems with lack of stable configuration. Some telescopes could participate in one epoch observation, but be missed from the another one. And with data quality, we meant telescope issues, RFIs, and of course, that's also a big disadvantage. Yeah, and that's something that users mentioned as well, like a large percentage of dishes failing, and also limited frequency coverage was mentioned, something that we didn't have on our list. We asked about EVN observations, and that there is about half and half. Some 50% of our users, about 50% of our users are experienced with EVN observations, but half of them haven't tried it yet, hopefully yet. And we asked why. What should we improve? And seems like, again, here is a problem with limited amount of EVN sessions per year. Not all telescopes are available for this type of observations, and these type of observations usually done only at 6 and 18 centimeters with only these bands. We also have observations with other bands, but we say about the most frequent. Also, we asked to rate experience with different informational support stuff that we have, like our website, newsletter, even updates, technical information, and so on. Here on these graphics, we have like 1 as a worst case and 5 as a best case. As you see here, we have pretty good rate for most of the resources, but still there are several answers, and we see that we need to improve some things, and we'll definitely work on it. Also, we asked about some other things that we have under that, like in a system of EVN, like our schedule instructions, data archive, user guides, our EVN sensitivity calculator, for example. And again, we asked to rate them like from easy to use to difficult. And at least we know that most of our users use functionalities that we provide, because there are not many answers with never used this, or people usually know where to find it. But still, we see that most of the responses, they're like normal, and probably we would like to make it easier. So we're also going to work on it.
2 minutes, Olga.
Oh, thanks. Okay, so we have responses from when you submit your proposal, you get a feedback, and most of our users, they are satisfied with this feedback, but also some of the users noted that there are a bit of the general response, general mark of the proposal, not always in agreement with feedback from individual referees. Probably Kazi will say something about it. With the North Star, the biggest disadvantage seems to be lack of functionality to propose for TO observations. And as we said, we're already working on this problem. People especially mentioned our new EVN observation planner. That's a great thing that helped with observations, not only with EVN, but also with other VLBI arrays. Again, I would like you to check this. If you haven't done it yet, please scan this QR code or follow the link. We asked if we will supply a science platform where you can work with your EVN data, like remotely, or will produce some kind of easy to access or near science ready data, would you use it? Mostly this proposal was met very like people would like to have it, definitely would like to have it, at least 50% of our users, but there are still some doubts because we all know that EVN is pretty, EVN data is pretty hard to work with because of all the different telescopes and things like this. But still, there are many users who would like to have near science-ready data. And also asked about the software that people use. In most of the cases, it's APES and CASA, and also, of course, TIFF-map. And like general results, suggestions and requests, users would like to have more than 3 sessions per year. Some of them asked to offer EVN Lite configuration. As always, we would like to have more large dishes and sensitivity, more bandwidth. Also, users said that they would like to have MS formatted data. That's the data that we can use with CASA. Simply communication with users. Also, there was a suggestion to have a kind of EVN school. And we still need to improve the EVN website and data archive. And again, please participate in this survey so we can see what else we should work on.
Thank you very much, Olga. I think it indeed is very well. Thank you to everybody who has answered, these 41 warriors who were to face the questionnaire. And indeed, one of the comments that is on the chat at this very moment by Mega and Argo is whether there is a different trend for the, let's say, old hands versus the new users. And it means that we need more new users to identify if some of these questions will sustain. I worry, for example, the fact that a science ready or a science platform is only supported by 50% of the users, possibly because the users we are talking about are the most experienced ones. And that could change very much if we get new users also answering the questionnaire. Okay, so comments, questions from the audience to Olga? I don't see any in the chat. I still see the discussion on the CASA, TIFF-map, etc.
No, they are discussing now about the spectral resolution and.
Yes, that was the previous case by Michel, who has said that the spectral line people need not to be forgotten. Okay, that's very important. Okay, so if no more comments on the specific to the questionnaire, we have a few more minutes for a general discussion.
There is a hand by Ross Alexander.
Ross, yes, Ross, go on.
Hi, can somebody explain to me a little bit about what is the EVN Lite? Because I hear it being discussed, but I don't know if it's an official feature or if it's just a kind of under the table version of EVN or something.
Yeah. Well, EVN Lite is a proposal that has been discussed at the Consortium Board of Directors for some time now, to precisely overcome one of the limitations of the EVN, which is that the observations are linked to specific sessions. So the possibility for some of the EVN antennas, specifically those who maybe the smaller antennas who may have less, let's say, pressure on observing, could devote more time to extra VLBI observations, and that's why it's called EVN Lite. It's not an official mode of operation of the EVN yet, but the discussions on that for specific purposes, the advantages are seen. So I think that is why Olga included this. Some of the users have been asking for a higher cadence in their observations, a more regular observation than 3 times per year. And also it is part of the EVN vision. The EVN vision requires for some of the science cases this kind of more flexibility in observing. But as I say, it's not yet a an operational mode for the EVN. Okay, thanks. Other questions, comments? Chris, who is responsible for the, oh, sorry, this is moving, for the proposal planner mentioned? It would be interested to see how useful it is for the LBA. Chris Phillips.
That was answered on.
Zsolt? Yes.
That was answered in the chat. It's Benito.
And I can add, actually, because I forgot that it's mainly focused on the EVN, but not limited to that. So we already support the main VLBI networks, and then the plan is that it can be used for at least the standard. Also thinking on the global VLBI alliance. So we already include VLBA, LBA, KVM, Vera, plus others, and we are happy to include even more stations, even the EHT people. We got a lot of feedback from there, so it can be also used for those observations. So it's a bit more broader tool than not only for the EVN or not exclusively for the EVN.
Yeah, actually, it is very easy to select which are the telescopes around the world that one can include in this simulation or plan. Okay. Very good. I see here a comment by Kazi. I can comment on the PC feedback. Do you still want to comment on the PC feedback, Kazi?
Yes, I can, because there was this one person that said that the summary feedback and the individual feedbacks were very different. Well, when we go so prior to the PC meeting, every voting PC member writes their feedback, right? And then the final summary feedback is decided on during the PC meeting. So these may be different because something may be brought up at that meeting, is being discussed. It was not mentioned, or we can also mention information to each other without having that public, without that everybody can see that. But it can be that something escapes previously, the notion of the referees. It's been found at the PC meeting, and during this discussion, it's found to be a vital component. So I understand that this can be confusing, and I've taken note of that, and we will try to adjust.
In any case, this is quite standard in all PC program committee, right? I mean, you end up having a consensus in the general evaluation of the proposals.
Yes, but we don't want to confuse the users, right? So I think it's a good feedback, and I'm happy that we got it.
Very good. Any other question or comment? It has been, of course, said. Oh yes, Denise, please.
I was just going to comment about this question of consensus reviews versus individual reviews. I suppose one thing that might be considered is whether simply to send the users the consensus review, not the individual ones, which is something that the NOAO does. There are pluses and minuses, but it might be worth thinking about.
Yeah. Personally, I like very much how we do it. Also, it allows that the consensus feedback is concentrated on the main points only, because some helpful details will be in the individual reports, right? If there is only one, then this one should absorb all the good information, all the useful information to the user. And I was happy to see that there was a lot of positive votes in this user feedback survey. But it's at the EVN PC can decide how it wishes, how it thinks to do things best. So I think this now, maybe next year, things will be different.
There are a couple of comments in the chat in support of keeping the individual reports from the referees.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy with that.
Okay. So okay. So I like to mention myself. It's been in the questionnaire. What are the strengths and what are the weaknesses of the EVN? Okay, and the strengths is obviously the sensitivity, the angular resolution, and the weaknesses are, well, the fact that we are limited to some sessions and other things like that. I think these are possibilities to look at this as different, let's say, performances, or let's say different capabilities. And I will talk tomorrow about the Global VLBI Alliance, which is a way to exploit precisely the complementarity of the different networks of VLBI around the world. Not every single VLBI network needs to solve all the problems of the science, but there are possibilities to optimize different networks for different purposes. And in that sense, it's clear that the EVN has very nice strengths, and other networks have other strengths. And it depends on what is your science that you may like to use one or the other, or as we've seen today, Olga, both. A lot of users of the EVN are also users of the VLBI, for example. So I look forward to continue the discussion. If there are no other urgent questions now, please, let's continue in Discord, in the tool. We can continue asking and answering things. And then I am about to close the user meeting, thanking everybody. There is a last-minute comment from Ross. User support is another huge advantage of the EVN. Yes, Ross, thank you very much for pointing that out. I think it's been mentioned a number of times today. Some other arrays, despite their technical strengths, can be almost seen as exclusive arrays. Okay, yes, it is clear that the EVN is an open facility, and one of the strengths that we put a lot of resources is precisely for user support. So in that sense, we again thank you, all the users of the EVN who have come together. Almost 100 people have joined this session this afternoon. Thank you all of you for being here, and please keep for the next couple of days. We still have lots of exciting presentations, and we should be keeping our discussions again in Discord and the other channels. Any last word from the organizers, Denise, Noemi? No?
Thank you to all. Have a good rest of the evening.
Thank you very much then.
Yep, and see you tomorrow.
Yeah, 9:30.